Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. Excited to talk again today about the Masterclass that's coming up this Thursday. It's funny. This always happens with me and my guides as I will start to teach something. And I feel like I'm teaching one thing and all of a sudden the guys just start pouring in new information. And so, I'm looking forward to sharing a bit today about what we're actually going to cover. We've been talking about it from a high performer perspective. And absolutely. And, I think one of those is that we're all high performers. Any of us that are committed to our own personal path, committed to our alignment, committed to growing and expanding, high performance is part of that. And we may not recognize that in ourselves, but it's there. And so I want to talk a little bit today about what's really framing up as the outline for that class on Thursday. And, part of why that's coming in is, it's amazing. Everybody I talk to right now is just feeling like it's really challenging to hold their center, to hold an inner stability, because there's so much happening in the world and there's so much happening energetically. We're getting pushed around. And so the theme for this is all around inner stability and finding that solidness inside of ourselves as the world moves around us. And it's needed more than ever. And so we'll talk a bit about it today, a bit about what we'll be covering, and really just kind of giving us some insight into what these tools are and what it looks like in our lives. So welcome, Nick.
Hey, good morning. I'm anxious to hear what you have teed up here.
Yeah, me too. It's funny. I was thinking about it from that perspective, right? Yeah, so it's really fun. Nick and I were talking about this too, and Nick does a lot of story coaching now as well, and so we're really talking about bringing more story into this, which really started me reflecting on my own journey, and how did I get here to be teaching the Aligned Living tools, and it started really when I look at my process of growing up. I was, for the first 18 years of my life, I lived with my parents, and we lived on this house on 80 acres, like a hobby farm in upstate New York. And our house was at the top of the hill. And from our house, my parents actually still live there. And from the house, you look down, it's like you can barely see the neighbors, kind of through the trees. But growing up, it was, me and my brother Jack, and we tended to have a pretty antagonizing relationship. Then my father Howard, and my mother Julie, and growing up there, it was really interesting setting because outside we had 80 acres and there's all this farmland and trees and woods to go play in. And I spent most of my time outside playing in that. And what the inside of the house looked like is upstairs, there was 3 bedrooms. So if you walked up the stairs, the top of the stairs is my parents' room. To the left is this little half bath. And to the right was a doorway that led into my room. And so as you walk into my room, you'd see my closet on the left, my bed straight ahead. And then just past the closet, there's another door. And that door actually led to my brother Jack's room. And so, being that was his room, he had right away throughfare through my room whenever he wanted to come and go. And, that was just the sense of how things were for me. And so obviously I spent a lot of time outside, but it was such a clear reflection of what is it like as an empath, right? Whereas an empath, people just can come and go through our world. We're feeling everybody's everything. And as I reflect on that, it's kind of, I don't know if ironic's the right word, but it's pretty damn interesting, right? That my upbringing, my room was actually a hallway in which my brother could come and go from at will, right? I didn't get to have a boundary. I didn't get to go, I deserve this space for me. This is where I live. This is my sense of self, and everything else is on the outside. It was a throughfare. And I think so many of us that are empaths feel that way. Like our maybe we wouldn't claim it that way, but if we're to reflect on what it feels like to walk out in the world, like, why is it so challenging? It's because the world has access to us. And maybe we're giving it that access by tapping into everything, but that's how our empathic abilities, as we turn them on outside, that's what we do with them. And our sense of self gets hijacked all the time. We are always walking through the world, feeling other people's energies, other people's emotions stronger than our own. And we end up just feeling the need to take on other people's stuff. And we're always getting our attention, our energy, our awareness. Like we have to have them to be okay before we can be okay, which means that our stuff's always last. And we just don't have the boundaries around it.
Mm.
It's funny when I was a little kid, I remember periodically we'd go to New York City. And as I was going through my story, I was just remembering so clearly, I was sitting in Manhattan in a McDonald's, and all of a sudden I just puked all over the floor in the McDonald's, and I had to go back to the hotel and stay there because I had the flu. But it turns out every time I'd go to the city, I'd get the flu. And I was like, "Oh, David's sick again. Oh, what a pain in the ass. He's got to go back to the hotel." I didn't have a way to stop the city from running through me. I didn't have a boundary, and it really showed up there. And so that's why the first tool in the aligned living system is what we call the consciousness lock. And it's a way to set a clear distinction between there's a world out there and there's a world in here. There's me. This is what I want my world to look like. This is what I deserve. And the world can be out there. And with empaths, without taking this step, like most of us don't have that. We're just at the mercy of whatever, and it's always taking priority. And this other memory I have is years later, as an adult, I had my healing center, and this was in Conifer, Colorado, and I parked at the grocery store near my center, and I'm walking to the grocery store, and one of my clients was there. I didn't see her, but she was watching me, and she catches me as I'm about to go, and she goes, "You must be the happiest guy I've ever seen. Like you're just walking across the parking lot, just smiling away." And I was like, I like that. I was thinking to myself, I'm like, that feels pretty good. I'm the happiest guy she knows. And then my guides popped in. They're like, no, you're not. I was like, I prefer that. I prefer her take on it. What do you got for me, right? And what they said was, you smile constantly so that everybody around you, it shifts them to feel better to you. And when you're doing that, right, like, and that's just one representation, right? What are we doing to make people around us feel more digestible, to be in a better place? If we're feeling that, and not just ourselves, we're not just responsible for how we feel. In fact, how are we responsible for how we feel? By making everybody else feel better, because then we feel better. And when that happens, we're just hijacked constantly. We're always just doing something to make everybody else around us feel better. And it's not for our highest good, it's for our survival. And it's not, as I've discovered in that moment when I was like, oh, I'm the happiest guy. Like, no, you're not. Right. Like it was a little bit of a harsh realization, but it was also laughable. To go, oh, that's so true. I am just making everybody else feel better because it feels better to me.
Yeah. It's a lot of
And
folks are walking around, and I was like this for a long time, people pleasers,
yeah, yeah. And
right?
why? Why? Right.
There's something typically behind it. Yeah. And we see, I'm sure you see this a lot with the Harrison. There's a paradox in there of assertive
Mhm.
and helpful.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks come in being very high and helpful and low and assertive. I'm just here to
Yeah.
help out.
Yeah.
And my
When
needs
when I set
always get
boundaries, people
pushed.
don't like it, and I can feel that. And when
Yeah.
I'm helpful, people love it, and I can feel that.
Yeah.
And I've developed my personality around it. And I see myself as a loving, caring person, which I am. And there's an unconscious motivation for me to feel
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's foundational. That's core,
Yeah.
right? And if we don't feel okay, if we don't feel safe because everybody around us feels unsafe, and it's funny, that's why animals are drawn to us, kids are drawn to us, because we make people feel safe. And that's
Mm.
great, but we can also do it without deprioritizing ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that is the first tool in the aligned living system, which is the consciousness lock, which not to go into great detail about it, but if you haven't worked with it before, that's where we basically work with our sense of our emotional empathic ability, which to me, again, there's that definition have empathic ability, as people say it's your ability to feel others deeply. And I say, no, it's not. It's your ability to feel emotional energy deeply. And wherever you place that awareness is where you experience it. And so it teaches you how to clearly move your awareness from 90% external and 10% internal to 90% internal and 10% external. And now you feel your own self much stronger. So that sovereignty brings clarity because we don't know who we are. We don't know what we want if we're constantly overrun with everybody else's energy and desires and emotions. And ours are buried in there somewhere. We're
Yeah.
the throughfare, we're the hallway. And, where there's so much beauty in our identity of helping others, we get lost in it. And the ability to help others when we know who we are and we know what we're bringing, we know what our greatest gifts are, and we've stabilized is exponential. And it's short sighted to think that we're helping more by giving ourselves away. It just, I've seen it in thousands of clients and obviously in my own life as I learn to stabilize. But the first step is not bleeding. And
Yeah.
it's profound.
It's airplane rules, right? When those masks come down, first yours, then someone else's.
Yeah.
Or
Well, except it applies to all of life. And so what are
yes,
we creating? What does our life look like? What is every minute of our day and all of our motivation about? If our motivation is about making everybody around us okay, so we're okay, we're just hijacked all day long. And,
all
and,
day.
and think about how much energy that takes. Think about how much of our attention is not on creating what we're here to create. And I think that's why so many empaths' identity is wrapped up in I'm a helper. I'm here to help others. And for years when I was working with Aligned Living and I'd introduce this concept, that was the pushback I'd get. I like that. That's who I am. I'm here to help others. And now the demand from the world, how much emotional need there is out there, it's unsustainable. And so now when I introduce this to empathic people, they go, "Oh, thank God, I need a way to not just be experiencing everybody else's shit anymore." But 5 years ago, 3 years ago, it was I can't get enough of it. Like it's my whole purpose
Mm,
until it's just we're drowning in it, which is the emotional need out there. We drown in it if we're out there. And so what do people do now? They isolate. What do we see with all the kids? Isolation, afraid to leave the house,
mm.
afraid to engage. It's just too much.
Addiction to devices. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Turning away from. And so this first tool is exactly that of how do I hold a boundary? How do I not let myself be a hallway?
Oh, that's a
And
great phrase.
yeah, absolutely. And so, that brings us to the second part, which is really the main focus we're going to have during the Masterclass Thursday is stabilizing internally. And when we do that, so we've set the boundary, right? We've gone, okay, there's an outer world and there's an inner world. Everybody's doing their thing out there. This is me here in my sovereignty, feeling myself. And then, you know, this isn't us just feeling ourselves though, because now we have this empathic ability that we're placing internally. And so what do we do with that? Well, we stabilize it, we ground it inside of us, and we feel that sense of gravitas, but we also connect it. And this is what I call connecting our will with God's will. And you can call it, connecting our will with the organizing energy of the universe. For some reason, more and more now, I keep calling it God's will. It just feels resonant now. But we all know there's some sort of an organizing energy. And when we tap into that, and we're not being in this fray around us, incredible things start to happen. And all kinds of synchronicities start to happen. All kinds of things flow into our life. And it becomes quite magical with the synchronicity, but also extremely grounded. It's interesting as we open up to this and what each of these tools has meant for me over the years. Like at first, that the conscious lock felt like protection from all the shit going on in the world. Like, and now it doesn't. It just feels like that's just not where I need to put my awareness. Like all that needs to happen, but I need to be here. It's not protection, it's focus. And so then when we focus here and go, okay, now let me ground this, let me really feel who I am, and let me align who I am with my connection with the divine, aligning my will with God's will, aligning my will with the organizing energy of the universe. Now some really powerful things happen. And the next step in this is we start to open up to the wonder of what God wants to bring into our life, the wonder of what this organizing energy wants to bring into our life. And when we do that, it's an interesting piece because most of us that have been very spiritual, when we've done that in the past, we've gotten a little out there, right? And growing up, I was that space cadet, it was like I was either out drifting around or inside in a really frustrated place because there was a lot of victimhood because I didn't feel the agency to have my life be how I wanted it to be. And I was really frustrated with how life was. And so when we have this agency inside of ourselves, and we ground and stabilize in it, we're not that space cadet. We're not off living in a non-ordinary reality. And I think for many of us, when these gifts first come in, or if you've activated or if you've had psychic abilities open up, it's really easy. And we see this in spiritual communities, right? To go kind of play a non-ordinary, to just keep seeking the next non-ordinary experience.
Hmm.
And it's very ungrounding, and it doesn't align us necessarily with who we are. It's part of our discovery process, but it's not sustainable for us to walk through this world as a force that creates powerful and amazing things and helps other people stabilize. And so when we do that with ourselves, we're stabilized enough that we can actually open up to that, the energetics of the divine light, of this access to higher knowing without becoming ungrounded, without drifting off into, and changing our name into no, I'm not knocking it, but it's like people's spiritual like journeys are usually way out there, right? As of course, because it's so far from the ordinary reality. And what happens when we create that space to maintain that magical connection, all that guidance and all the things that God wants to bring into our life with this stability. And it's really powerful. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. How you doing there, Nick?
Good, good. I think you said there was 3 elements, and that was number 2.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Am I tracking right? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So this brings the third piece in that we'll be covering in the uh, on Thursday. And the line living system is it's 12 weeks, right? And so what we're doing is we're framing it up. We're giving people in the class where we're going to be working on the inner stability. But it's also important for us to know the connective tissue. Like there's a reason that this course is 12 weeks. There's a lot to integrate. There's a lot of learning to live in a new way, right? Rather than being, bleeding in and out of the world, bleeding in and out of us, and us bleeding in and out of the world, of this claiming our identity and showing up in our fullness and showing up in that expansion, showing up in that guidance. And so the third part really it leads right out of this because let me finish this last thing with the second part, the stabilizing and the opening up and wonder to what the organizing energy wants to bring into our life is some really powerful things happen. Is we start to experience synchronicities, we start to experience new opportunities, and this is where our self-worth comes in. And this can be a challenging one for people to wrap their heads around because we tend to either think we have a good self-worth or we tend to think we have a bad self-worth. Like, oh, I really struggle with being worthy. I really struggle with receiving. Or, no, I got it. I'm really good at that. And the truth is that when we expand, it becomes something that we all need to adjust to, no matter how good feel we are at it or how challenged we feel we are at it. Because when we look at our lives, in each category of life, so we could say financial, relationships, romantic relationships, opportunities to share our gifts, opportunities for people, bring their gifts to us. What is our living situation? What are all the things that we're experiencing in life? Whatever it is that we're experiencing in life is our exact threshold for our worthiness in that category. And we're always at our limit with it. Because if we could receive more, if we were open to receiving more, we already would. And so we all have limits. It doesn't matter how good we are at it. If you look at an area of your life and you want more, that's about expanding your worthiness in that area.
Hmm.
And when we plug it into these tools, something really interesting happens because the moment we stabilize, we find that sovereignty, we stabilize internally, and we call on the universe, we call on the organizing energy, we call on God to bring more. It does. And then we are in this experience where our sense of deserving is actually not at the level of our receiving at the moment. And all of a sudden now we're receiving more than we've felt like we could hold before it. And of course it can come right in. And so what we're talking about not is about receiving, that is part of this, but more importantly is about holding. And so when something new, something expanded, something better, something upgraded shows up in our life, can we hold it? Can we make it sustainable? And here's what happens if we're not aware of this, if we don't expand our own sense of self-worth with this and intentionally, and part of the line living system is these tools for heart activation and for, and that's the third thing. So now we're getting really into the third thing that we're talking about is this ability to expand ourselves and our heart, which instantly puts us into a place of greater deservedness because we feel our divine self. And our divine self has no limits. It's not about our childhood anymore. It's not about all the shit that we've been through or the things we did get or didn't get or our own judgment of self or the things that we've done that we're still holding ourselves accountable for. It's about this energetic feeling inside of ourselves of expansion, this feeling of our heart getting bigger and us knowing that there's just more for us. And when we do that, it becomes sustainable what we're receiving. And we see these up levels happen. And if we don't do that, if we don't expand to hold what we're receiving, we undermine it. And we do that in a series of ways. Quite often our ego gets activated. And maybe we start, you see people get a little too big for their britches, so to speak, and they start acting out in ways that are not, that are not received well. Maybe they start to mistreat people or they act arrogant, and that's one way some people do it. Some people get, full of themselves when they get a whole bunch of things that they've been wanting. Another way we do it though is we shrink and we go, gosh, this is just so much for me to hold, and we
Mm.
start to self-sabotage. I mean, somebody that gets the new car that they've wanted forever, and they don't, all of a sudden they scratch it the first day. They open their door and they ding it, or somebody else dings their door, or they get the new pair of sneakers and they scuff them the first time they walk, or their new jacket and they scratch it, or whatever it looks like. People have this money come in and then they invest in something stupid and it blows up, or they say something stupid to their new client that's like this new opportunity and they blow it up. We upper limit, and it's all connected with our self-worth. And so that ability to hold is massive because we don't want to just be able to call it in. If we can't hold it, that's even more upsetting, right? To go, I had it in my hands,
I dropped it.
I dropped it, right? And you look at this, like the statistics around lottery winners is a complete reflection of this. Like what portion of them, and I'll have to look this up and I'll have this information on Thursday, actually are at or below their original financial level a year or two after winning the lottery. And there's even, I mean, this is even crazier, is how many of them like get cancer or get sick and die, you know, because they implode when trying to hold all of this wealth. You see it with people that are, been wanting to be famous their whole life and they have their breakthrough and they can't handle it. And, they turn to drugs, they do stupid things and they blow it up somehow.
Yeah.
And so, we do all this stuff to expand ourselves and to open up to these incredible possibilities. And if we aren't willing to take that next step, which is how do I expand my self-worth so that I can hold this, so that I can make it sustainable in my life and actually the next ability that I grow to the next level from, we just find a way to cut our own Achilles, to take ourselves out. And it's been proven over and over again.
So this is a very active way, the aligned living system. I'm just putting the pieces together.
Mhm.
It's a very active way to stop that thoroughfare
Mhm, mhm.
you were talking about of this is my room and also my brother walks through at any point in time. And how could you possibly hold anything in that state?
Yeah, or even think that I didn't even think it was abnormal, right? It was just how
Mm,
life was,
interesting.
and I
Yeah.
didn't like it, but I had no agency. I had no idea that, like, this isn't okay.
Yeah. So there's a huge awareness piece with the aligned living system.
Absolutely, right? If we're just bleeding energy back and forth, and it's how we've always been, and we don't have any agency, we don't have the consciousness lock to go, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not
Yeah.
taking on everybody else's stuff. I have my own stuff to manage, which means I have my own gifts to share. And my greatest gift to share is not trying to make everybody else okay so they can survive another day.
Yeah.
I need to stabilize so I can actually bring some real change.
Yeah. And that's a huge perspective change, which then facilitates change, actual
Absolutely.
change. Yeah. Physical change. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool.
It's exciting. And I mean, it's
Super.
with how much instability there is right now, I just feel like the system was handed to me to deliver now. It's when it's most needed.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's any doubt of the value, go turn your TV on for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
See how you feel after 5 minutes. Yeah. And then
Absolutely. And I think about it with my journey, why was this download? Why did this come in 2016? That's 9 years ago. well before the world was really ready for it. Like I said,
Mm,
I talked into the void about it for years. Nobody was really that interested. But I also had my own journey of
yeah.
self-worth, my own journey of being able to hold this, my own journey of expanding, my own journey of dialing it all in. And if I was handed that in 2016 and that was the time for it to launch, I wasn't ready.
Mm,
I had a lot of work of my own to do to get here. And it continues, right? Because
mm-hmm,
whenever we reach another level, like I just said a few minutes
mm-hmm.
ago, our sense of self-worth, our sense of deserving, our sense of the ability to hold it all has to expand because whatever we're experiencing, that is our limit already. And no matter how big our life is, that is our limit. And so if it's going to get bigger, if it's going to get more expansive, we have more work to do.
Yeah.
And people go, why are you still doing all this work on yourself? Like you've been doing it for years because I'm expanding. Right. And we can sit down, we can kind of stabilize, but that's not what this lifetime is about right now. Everything's expanding and it's a bumpy ride.
There's
And,
always
and
more to
it's-
be done, and this system helps you do it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great stuff. So, in the show notes, is the link to join the masterclass, and really excited to take you all through the deep dive into this and the experience of stabilizing, and yeah, so needed right now,
It's
so
great.
needed.
And for folks who are listening and maybe driving, I think is it Thursday, 3 o'clock? Is that right?
Yeah, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern. Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'll look forward to seeing you all there, and thanks so much for listening. We will see you all next week. Actually, we'll see you Thursday, right?
Mhm.
Have a great one. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast. And if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.